Which power is more suited to take over the world, Vampire Dio or Dino Diego? Now some of you might be saying, well, the answer is very obvious. It is Vampire Dio. But I would argue that it is not as one-sided as you would think. And while they are supposed to be different characters, alternate versions of each other, the two of them are surprisingly similar, and I will focus on both characters' ability that allow them to dominate the world. I will only talk about Part 1 Dio, and for Part 1 Skipper, let me boil down the Vampire's Dio ability. Anti-aging, superhuman strength, superhuman speed, blood-sucking, super regeneration, hypnosis, the ability to turn the living and the dead into zombies, and there are a couple more ability, but I don't think they are relevant to this discussion, so I am going to skip them. And I am not including the flesh bud, because they mainly appear in Part 3 and onwards, and to be honest, they're a bit too OP. With a list of ability like this, and Dio's intelligent, there is no doubt that he can take over the world. But here's the thing, I would say that Dino Diego is better, considering he can do the same thing that Dio does, but better. Diego also has super strength, super speed and reaction. Though he does not have the super regeneration like Dio, Dino form does offer durability. He tank both Tusk 1's bullet and Gyro Steel Ball and take minimal damage. For reference, Tusk 1 is able to cut somebody's legs clean off, so it is pretty strong. He can also turn both the living and the dead into dinosaur. The size and type of the dinosaur will depend on the creature itself, and while he does not have hypnosis like Dio, he is able to fully control those who have been infected. Looking at both lists, it seems as if Dio is having the upper hand, but the problem is, Dio have another list, and that is the list of downside. While he enjoys the vampire's ability, he also inherits their weaknesses, and that is the sunlight. He and his minion are not able to act during daytime, as the sunlight would kill them, allowing Dio to operate only at night or when the sun is down, effectively cutting his time in half. Now you might be saying, couldn't he just hypnotize a normal human being and then let them do his deed during daytime? Now you might be right, but there is a problem. We don't know the range and the duration of the hypnosis. We saw Dio use this ability on Jack the Ripper and Poco. Both times Dio was present, so it might not be very effective at long range. More importantly, Poco hypnosis was undone by Harmon, the power of sunlight. Therefore, I think hypnosis will not work during daytime, rendering it useless. Unlike Dino Diego, who can seemingly control his dino minion from very far away and can be used at any time. So all this talk about control, let us move on to the next point, the most important point, which is minions. Whose minion is better? Now, Dino Diego does have a clear problem with his minion, and that they are dinosaur, and people would notice if their favorite butcher or barista suddenly turned into a goddamn velociraptor. But in the story, it does suggest that after you have been infected, the scary monster user is able to control you in both form, both in human and dinosaur form. At the very least to some extent, because we see that after Diego has been infected, initially he's still being himself, telling Gyro and Johnny to piss off, but a while later, when they regroup with each other, Diego suddenly acts different. His mood completely changed, he even started telling jokes, so that is when I think Dr. Ferdinand was controlling him. I'm sure people would notice if their friend, their family, or somebody they know suddenly changed in behavior, but I would argue that Dio's minions is somehow even worse. Because remember, Dio's minions are zombies. While they do receive bonus strength, bonus speed, they also receive the blood loss from Dio, and they will start eating people left and right because of this bloodthirst. And this is the biggest problem. These zombies will just eat people instead of turning them. Now during the story, character have mentioned that these zombies can turn other people into zombies as well. But it doesn't seem that they were that interested in doing anything else but consuming these humans. The two instances I can think of is this. The mother got turned into zombie by Dio, and then she completely ate her own child. Like immediately. And in part 2, the zombie commander, the zombie who killed Joseph's father, he was one of the remaining zombie after Dio's defeat, and instead of infecting and turning other people into zombies as well so he can have more allies, he just straight up ate all of his victims, hairs and everything, not leaving a single trace. If part of the population suddenly disappeared and the other part are now chuds who won't leave their house and touch the sunlight, I think people would take notice and start taking action, and it would lead to a bigger and bigger problem for DIOs at the end. Whereas Dino Diego's army will only grow and grow, as they do not eat human to infect them, they would only need to scratch them and do not have an insatiable thirst for blood. Though, all of that being said, DIO do have an advantage, and that is the immortality through anti-aging. But it's hard to give him this point considering that the scientist was able to invent the UV light, the sunlight, in part 2, so I don't know how that immortality gonna last, how long will it last, I don't know. But that is just my opinion. Let me know if you disagree or agree. Bye bye.